So this is basically the strategy for the IPM Rohtak exam, which is just round the corner. So there's a truncated paper. So let's first look at the exam pattern. So we have three sections in the examination with 20 questions each, total 45 minutes. They clearly mentioned that there is no sectional time limit. It is +4 for correct answer and -1 for wrong answer. So don't try to do too much of guesswork. Okay. Intelligent guessing is fine. I mean, if you're confused in two options, just mark one and move forward without wasting your time. But blind guess, avoid. I mean, if you don't have any idea about the options, please go ahead. But if you know some idea, then you can mark and go ahead. Okay, no sectional time limit. So you can ideally spend more time on the sections where you can get more marks and less time on the section where you can get less marks. That's the basic idea. Right? And unlikely to have sectional cutoffs. It's not mentioned, but normally in a 45-minute section, very difficult to get sectional cutoff. Anyway, a person is expected to go to all the sections in the 45 minutes. So remember this, since there is no sectional time limit, focus your more time on areas where you can get more marks and less time on less marks, and no blind guessing, but definitely intelligent guessing, do that instead of wasting time. Sometimes if you can make out that this could be the answer, mark and move forward. Remember, it's a speed based test. 20 questions in each section basically means 60 questions, and 60 questions in 45 minutes, it's like you have hardly 45 seconds per question, so you need to really be fast. So how do you solve? What is the strategy for question selection? Now I'm dividing the strategy into two parts. One is question selection and is time. So always focus on easy questions first, or questions that take less time. Remember that time is very important because you have less time for it. So anything that takes less time, even if you're not strong at it, please solve first. Like antonyms, synonyms don't take time. Just see it and mark fast, see it and mark fast. To whichever question that takes less time, first solve that, and then solve question which takes more time, or whichever question you feel are easy, solve that first and then go for less time. But remember, time is more important than anything else. I would always look at trying to solve first those questions which takes less time, because then I can solve more number of questions in a given time limit, right? So focus on question which takes less time. Even if you find a question which you know you can solve it, but it takes a longer time, it makes sense to leave the question. Leave a tough questions for later, very important. If you end up wasting time on tough questions, you will not be able to complete the paper. So read, move forward. It's maximum 10 seconds, maybe to 15 seconds to leave a tough question. So you see a question, read it, you find it tough, leave it immediately. Don't try to solve all tough questions. Okay, and just can read it and leave it. Sometimes maybe you can leave it without reading it also, that's fine. But learn to leave tough questions quite fast. Okay, there will be easy questions, there will be tough questions. You can always come back to the questions later if you have time, but that is only possible if you learn to leave questions, tough questions fast. When you're leaving a question, mark it. If you feel a question is too long and you're definitely not going to come back, then say that I'll never come back to question. Write a question number and saying that. Normally what I do in the examination is I make it two columns. So one I will not come back to and one I'll come back to it later. Okay, this is what I do. So if I feel I'm not going to come back to it, I'll write a question number here. If I feel I'll come back to it later, it's possible to solve, maybe I'll come back to it later, I'll solve it here. So that means after my first round of solving, I exactly know which questions to come back to. Okay, that helps. So try to make this particular list and go about it. Helps. Strategy with regards to time. Okay, distribute your time before the exam. Okay, that means if I have 45 minutes, just plan your paper. I'll solve 10 minutes for verbal, 15 minutes for response, etc. Whatever the time you get. So it could be 15 minutes for each section. It could be that I'll give only 10 minutes to verbal, 15 minutes to logic, and 20 minutes to maths. Possible. I feel I can solve verbal really fast, so I'll finish verbal fast and then give more time to logic and maths. Perfectly all right. Or it also is a good strategy to keep maybe a 5 minutes buffer in the end, just in case a section takes slightly more time. So if you have a buffer time, it helps. For example, I may keep 10 minutes verbal, 15 minutes logic, 15 minutes maths, and then keep 5 minutes to come back to it later. Possible. So this is one. I'm just saying, do a strategy that you're comfortable with. You must have already solved a few mocks. You must be already comfortable with it. But just have a strategy in back of your mind. Okay, when you're solving the paper. But be free to leave a section. For example, I'm starting with the max section and find max really tough. I'm not getting it. Leave it, go to logic section, solve it, and come back to max. There's no harm in that. Okay. If you find a 4-5 questions of max very tough and you're finding it not happening, just go to next section and then come back to it. But there's no harm. You be flexible with your strategy. Have a strategy in place have a plan in place, but be flexible. For whatever reason, if you're finding a particular section tough, for example, I solve verbal and I see all the verbal questions are very tough, like RCs and jumble para and etc. And you think it'll take a longer time to solve verbal, then maybe I'll solve the logic and max and then come back to verbal. Okay, and same is true for any section that goes on. So be free. Last minute tips. Open book is of no use because in a speed based test, the time I will take to search for a question will be much more than the time I'll take to solve. If you anyway can't solve a question, just leave it. There's no point of an open book, it will not help you. You may keep the books, but refrain from using it at least in the first round or until the paper is over. You can always come back, but understand searching for a question or a formula will take you a long time. And even if you get a formula, applying that will take you a longer time. So it doesn't make sense. If the exam does not go as per plan, for example, I have made a plan that I'm going to solve 40 questions, I'm going to solve 50 questions, but somehow it's not going as per plan. That means the paper is tougher than what you found it. Just relax. Don't hassle. Remember, if the paper is different for you, the paper will be different for everyone, easy or tough. Okay. So remember, I normally tell people that if you find the paper easy, the paper is easy for everyone. So please push and try to solve more questions. If you find the paper is tough, the paper will be tough for everyone. Relax, pick up the easy questions and try to solve. That's how you need to work on as far as the examination goes. So remember these two things, that if by chance for any reason it doesn't go as per plan, and it will be same for everyone because the different paper is same for everyone. Just relax, take maybe a 5 seconds break, and then jump on a paper and plan the paper and go ahead. Just give your best in those 45 minutes. Don't think that I will make it, not make it. My paper is, I'll definitely get a college, I'll not make it a college. Don't think anything about that. That 45 minutes is just to focus and try to do your best in the examination. That's all. There is nothing that should come in your mind saying that, oh, I'm doing good or I'm doing bad. Nothing. It is just that 45 minutes, strategize your paper, plan your paper, and solve to your best of your ability. And that is what is important. Ensure that you don't waste time on any specific questions. Move ahead. It is the easy questions first round. Try to finish that off. Always can come back to later some and then try to solve it later. All the best for the examination and do well.